Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Variety Show. I'm your host, Natty, and I want to jump right into today's topic. Did you know there's a new Final Destination movie coming out this week? Well, if you didn't, now you do. And I don't know about you, but Final Destination, especially the first three, were my gateway drug into horror, so I can't wait. I'm so stoked for a new one after all this time. Since it has been 14 years since the last movie, I wanted to revisit the plots of the first five in this episode. That way, whether you're new to the series or just needed a refresher, you'll be ready for the theater this weekend. Starting with the first movie. In the year 2000, high school student Alex, along with his classmates, boarded Volley Flight 180 to Paris for their senior trip. Before takeoff, Alex had a premonition of an in-air explosion that killed everyone on board. He started freaking out, wanting off the plane, which led to a fight with his rival Carter. As a result, Alex and Carter were removed from the plane, along with Alex's friend Todd, Carter's girlfriend Terry, their classmates Billy and Clear, and their teacher, Miss Luton. Everyone except for Clear was pissed that Alex got them kicked off the plane until shortly after takeoff, the plane exploded. The survivors were interrogated by these two FBI agents, Wine and Shrek, who were really suspicious of our boy Alex. Well, a little over a month later, after a memorial service for the victims, Todd drowned in his tub after a chain reaction caused him to slip and hit his head. His death was ruled a suicide, but Alex and Clear snuck into the funeral home to examine the corpse. There, they met the mortician William Slugworth, who revealed they disrupted Death's plan and Death was coming for them. The remaining survivors met up outside of a cafe to discuss their next moves, where Terry was killed by a bus. After a news report explained the cause of the explosion, Alex realized that Death was coming for the survivors in the order that they were intended to die on the plane. Miss Luton was next, so Alex went to save her. Unfortunately, he was too late and Miss Luton died in a house explosion. The remaining survivors met up to drive Alex to Clear's dad's cabin. During the drive, Carter realized that he was next and started driving like a maniac to go out on his own free will. Carter eventually stopped on a railroad track in front of an oncoming train, where the others were able to escape and eventually convinced Carter to change his mind. However, his seatbelt jammed and he was trapped. Alex was able to save him right before the train hit the car, but a piece of the wreckage decapitated Billy. At this point, Alex realized he was next. Alex hid in a fortified cabin for the next day until he remembered that he actually swapped seats with other classmates during his premonition, and Clear was next. He rushed to save her and was pursued by Wine and Shrek from the beginning of the movie. They were convinced that Alex was involved in all of the deaths, so they appear throughout, add a little layer of suspense to try to get Alex, Anyway, Alex made it to Clear only to find that she was trapped in her car surrounded by loose electrical cables. The cables ignited a gas leak around the car, but Alex was able to save Clear right before it exploded. 6 months later, Alex, Carter, and Clear went to Paris to celebrate their survival, where Alex admitted that Death never actually skipped him. They didn't have time to worry, though, because a neon sign started to fall and hit Alex. Carter pushed him out of the way only to be killed by the sign, and that is where Final Destination ended. Cut to 1 year after Flight 180's explosion. College student Kimberly was driving to Daytona Beach for spring break with her friends. She had a premonition of a deadly pileup while waiting on the entrance ramp of US Route 23. Kimberly stalled her car, preventing several others from entering the highway, including lottery winner Evan, mother Nora and her son Tim, businesswoman Kat, stoner Rory, teacher Eugene, and state trooper Burke. The pileup happened as Burke was questioning Kimberly, and a car carrier killed her friends, but Burke was able to save Kimberly at the last second. After the survivors were questioned at the police station, Evan accidentally started a fire in his apartment. While escaping, he was killed by the fire escape ladder. Kimberly, aware of Death's presence, met with Clear at the psych ward she committed herself to after Alex died. Kimberly told Clear that unlike her premonition, Death claimed Evan first. This caused Clear to deduce that the survivors were dying in reverse order. Meanwhile, Tim was leaving the dentist with Nora and was crushed by a window pane. Clear then took Kimberly and Burke to meet Slugworth, who told them that only new life could defeat death. Convinced that Isabella giving birth would save them, Burke sent a fellow marshal to take her into custody while he gathered the remaining survivors. Nora attempted to leave but was decapitated after her head was stuck in an elevator. Eugene was traumatized by this, and he took Burke's gun, tried to shoot himself multiple times only for the gun to misfire repeatedly. Clear then explained that it wasn't his turn. Isabella went into labor and was rushed to the hospital, so the other survivors took Kat's SUV to meet up with her. During the drive, everyone realized they avoided previous accidents thanks to Flight 180. That was why they survived the pileup, and their intended deaths were happening in reverse. The SUV suffered a blowout and swerved into a stack of pipes on a farm. Nobody died, but Eugene was injured and Kat was pinned to her seat. Eugene was then hospitalized after rescue workers arrived to help the farm owners rescue the others. Kat's rescuer accidentally set off her airbag, which killed Kat, and set off a chain reaction that led to Rory being dismembered by a barbed wire fence. Kimberly had a vision of a doctor who she believed would euthanize Isabella. Kimberly, along with Claire and Burke, rushed to the hospital only to find Isabella and her baby completely safe. Kimberly realized that Isabella was never meant to die in the pileup, while an explosion due to an oxygen leak kills Eugene and Claire. Kimberly realized the vision she had earlier was hers and drove into a lake to drown herself and ensure Burke's safety. However, Burke saved her and she was revived by the doctor from her vision. Sometime later, during a picnic with the farmers that saved them, Kimberly and Burke learned that Rory actually saved the farmer's son on the day of the accident. Just then, the grill exploded and killed the son. That's where the movie ended, and we can only assume that Kimberly and Burke lived happily ever after. Moving on to 2006, high schooler Wendy, along with her boyfriend Jason, best friend Carrie, and Carrie's boyfriend Kevin, went to an amusement park to celebrate their graduation. As they boarded the Devil's Flight roller coaster, Wendy had a premonition that the cars would derail and kill the passengers. Wendy was able to convince 9 other passengers, including Kevin, best friends Ashley and Ashlyn, alumnus Frankie, athlete Lewis, and goth couple Ian and Aaron, to get off the roller coaster. Jason and Carrie refused, however, and died in the derailment. Weeks later, Wendy learned about the survivors of Flight 180 from Kevin, who feared that they were in a similar situation. Meanwhile, Ashley and Ashlyn were burnt alive after being trapped in tanning beds. That confirmed Kevin's fear, so he and Wendy set out to save the survivors using omens from the pictures that Wendy took of them. They stopped at a drive-thru to observe Frankie's picture and immediately had to escape Kevin's truck to avoid an oncoming runaway ice cream truck. The trucks collided, causing the engine from Kevin's truck to fly into the car in front of it and kill the driver, who happened to be Frankie. The next day, after failing to save Lewis from being crushed by a weightlifting machine, Wendy and Kevin found Ian and Aaron working at a hardware store. Wendy saved Ian from a runaway forklift, however, Aaron fell on a nail gun and died. Wendy eventually realized that the remaining survivors were her sister Julie and her friend Perry. She and Kevin rushed to the local fair to save them, where Kevin managed to save Julie, but Perry was impaled by a flagpole. Wendy, knowing that death was still afoot, saved Kevin from an exploding propane tank. Before they could even catch a breath, the group was confronted by Ian, who blamed Aaron's death on Wendy. This didn't last long due to a cherry picker falling and bisecting him. 5 months later, when Wendy happened to board the same train as Kevin and Julie, she had a premonition that the train would crash, ending this 3rd installment. In 2009, while at a car race with his friends and girlfriend, college student Nick had a premonition that an accident on the track would kill everyone in the stands. Nick's panic led to a scuffle that caused him, his girlfriend and friends, Lori Hunt and Janet respectively, security guard George, racist asshole Carter, mother Samantha, and the couple Andy and Nadia to leave the stadium. Shortly after the accident happened, and Nadia was decapitated by a stray wheel. Some night after the accident, Carter went to George's house to burn a cross on his lawn because he blamed George for his wife's death at the speedway. After a series of events caused his runaway truck to drag him down the street, Carter died in an explosion. The next day, a rock, shot from a lawnmower, killed Samantha as she was leaving a beauty salon. Nick, after hearing about the deaths, was convinced that death was after the survivors, so he and Lori, along with George, went to the speedway to find Andy. Unfortunately, he died in an accident at the mechanic shop. Nick had a vision that Hunt and Janet would die from water, so the group split up to save them. George and Lori managed to rescue Janet from a car wash malfunction, while Hunt was disemboweled by a pool drain before Nick could find him. 4 days later, Nick learned that there was another survivor, Grover, that was rescued from the rubble at the speedway. Nick and George went to the hospital that Grover was recovering in, only to arrive right as a bathtub fell through the ceiling and crushed him. While leaving the hospital, Nick had another premonition of multiple explosions at the mall killing Janet and Lori. However, he failed to save George from being run over by an ambulance. After running to the mall, Nick is able to stop the explosion, saving everyone. 2 weeks later, Nick, Lori, and Janet met at a cafe to celebrate their survival. While there, Nick saw more omens and realized that death was still after them. Just then, a truck swerved into the cafe, killed the trio, and ended easily the worst movie of the series. Going back to the early 2000s, office worker Sam, along with his ex Molly, his boss Dennis, coworkers Nathan, Olivia, Isaac, and Peter's girlfriend Candace were on their way to a company retreat when Sam had a premonition of the North Bay Bridge collapsing, killing everyone except for Molly. Panicked, he convinced the group to leave moments before the bridge collapsed. After being questioned by returning FBI agent Shrek, the survivors attended a memorial service for their colleagues where they were watched by Slugworth. Soon after, Candace died in a gymnastic accident and Isaac was crushed by a statue. Slugworth witnessed the deaths and told the remaining survivors about Death's plan. However, if they manage to kill someone, they can balance the books and claim that person's lifespan. Later, after a LASIK accident, Olivia fell off a building to her death. Sam realized that the survivors were dying in the order of his premonition and that Nathan was next. During an argument, Nathan accidentally killed his coworker Roy, claiming his lifespan. Dennis arrived to question the incident and was killed by a flying wrench. Later that night, Sam and Molly were at a restaurant, rekindling their relationship, when Peter interrupted them in an attempt to kill Molly and claim her lifespan. Sam and Molly were able to escape, and Shrek arrived after overhearing gunshots from outside, only to be killed by Peter, claiming Shrek's lifespan. Peter, wanting to get rid of any witnesses, still tried to kill Molly and Sam, only to be fatally stabbed by Sam, who ultimately gained Shrek's lifespan. 2 weeks later, Sam and Molly were driving down US Route 23 when they witnessed a commotion on one of the entrance ramps. While discussing the commotion, they were killed in a pile-up. Meanwhile, at Roy's memorial at a bar, Nathan learns that Roy had an undiagnosed brain aneurysm and would have died soon anyway. Just as the coworker left, debris from the pile-up crashed through the bar, killing Nathan. And that's it. You are caught up. Like I said, these movies mean a lot to me, so I am super excited to get another one, and I really hope it does well. I think to keep with the theme of today, this week's Positivity Tuesday is that we actually have a new Final Destination in the year 2025. A wild thing to think about. So that does it. That does it for this week's episode of The Varie-Tea Show. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.